Well, hello again, and welcome to Frankly Speaking, where breaking news is going to lead, Paul. We're going to get right to it, and then we'll get to the rest of our show, because things are happening, and they're happening fast. Pedro, if you can put up that breaking news, take a look at that, Paul.
Wow, documents show Russians sought meetings with Trump campaign. And that's what everybody knew, right? Everybody knew that they were doing that. And Team Trump, wait, does that say that they declined?
He declined.
They declined. So
the Trump campaign declined. So where's the collusion, Paul?
So I think Mueller's job is done.
Over and done.
Congratulations. Nice job, Mueller.
Yeah. Washington Post come out. Now, why all of a sudden would the Washington Post do that?
That's a good question.
Exactly.
They must have...
There's a motive.
It's not because they are trying to bail out Donald Trump or something like that.
No, but they are worried about being a monopoly. Amazon, aren't they? They bought Whole Foods, and there's some talk about they're getting too big for comfort, and maybe they're trying to appease. The other thing is, how's the economy going, Paul?
Gangbusters. Can you imagine the stock market is like 22,000? Consumer confidence is at a high for like the past 8 or 9 years. You know, development, real estate development. You look around the city of Lynn, there's things going up all over the place. I was actually at an event this morning. I'm on the Seaport Economic Council. We're over in Salem we approved $1 million for to do the boardwalk down at the waterfront to connect the new development of the Beacon site to the ferry. All good stuff happening.
Okay. Let me go one step further with you. This is critical. What's North Korea saying?
They said they were just kidding about Guam, right? Or something of that.
What are they saying? They're backing down, aren't they?
Right.
When did they ever back down under the Obama administration?
Or
when did
Bush,
anybody?
Or Clinton.
That's right. And for 25 years, they've been pushing the ball and pushing the ball. When they finally backed down. Why? Because China put the screws to them. Why did China put the screws to them?
Trump has
put the screws to China.
Right. And everybody's running around screaming that Donald Trump is some crazy guy that shouldn't have the fingers on the button and all that.
Oh, yeah, really?
It's so, when I was, the first president I ever voted for was Ronald Reagan, right, in the 1980 election. And all everybody was talking about is how crazy and how unhinged he was and all that kind of stuff. And he's been the greatest president in modern times.
He made Clinton. If it wasn't for the peace dividend, for the defeat of the Soviet Union that Reagan initiated, all of those goodies accrued to the Clinton administration, which he proceeded to blow. Right?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
They spent like drunken sailors. Folks, understand this. That fake news is fake news, and all of a sudden, the collusion issue has gone by the board, hasn't it?
Right.
And the Washington Post did it.
Trump declined to meet regarding the campaign. Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Okay. Yeah. Now.
So we don't need to have news anymore. I mean, that's it.
Speaking of news. This is fascinating. Front page of the item.
Yep.
Privatization, politics, and hyperbole. Now, let me give you the background, Paul.
So,
the proposal is to privatize bus maintenance, not the MBTA, just the maintenance, right?
Yeah, it's like
is that correct?
About 200 employees.
Roughly. Now, here's the key. There are 16 public transit agencies in Massachusetts, and only one, that's the MBTA, does not outsource its bus maintenance work. Now, just a comparative. Folks out there, think about this. The MBTA hourly rate, $56 an hour. I'd like to earn that.
Yeah.
If they privatize, it goes to $18 an hour. Seems like a no-brainer.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't want to be one of the 200 employees, and I would hope that there's a plan in place to you know, ease the impact on those who would be affected by it, but I think it's a good move overall.
But they're protected. They can just switch over to other parts of the MBTA. They can be drivers or do other things, correct? I mean, they're not going to get rid of the fuelers.
Right, and the idea...
So when you talk about 200 folks there, you're talking about a lot of fuelers that has nothing to do with being mechanics.
Right. So it's just to me that when you have to make significant changes like this, that the impact on the individual can't be lost in the conversation. And all I say is, and I prefer that there's some form of attrition exists. In other words, you don't replace these maintenance people, but you allow them to kind of move on and retire.
I understand
and that kind of stuff.
But what's fascinating to me is how people pick and choose. sometimes the Democrats say this privatization is the greatest thing since, candy bars. And and then afterwards it's like,
right.
toxic bile.
That's the whole thing. When a Republican recommends privatization, the Democrats scream bloody murder. And then the Democrats get into power and they say, what we need to do? We need to privatize.
Let me get to hyperbole, okay?
Okay.
Now, there were a number of officials there. Senator Ed Markey. His quote, ready? Lynn Mechanics, best in the USA.
And he knows that how?
Huh?
And how does he know that?
I have no idea, but he said it.
The guy's a Mr. Frosty. That was his experience before he became got into Congress.
He was very good at it, too. You mean the ice cream guy?
He sells soft serve ice cream.
Soft serve.
Mr. Frosty.
Yeah. So?
Ed Markey, Mr. Frosty.
It's a great qualification for the Senate.
Right.
As opposed to, it's a bad qualification for presidency? Success.
It's a bad qualification for a senator? Somebody who does whatever the leadership of the party says. In other words, instead of doing what's right for your district, he does what the Democrats tell him to do. What do you call them? The organized minority. Tell him what to do, not us, because they protect them.
And
anyway.
he also listens to drums and smoke scenes, from Elizabeth Warren. What can I tell you? She's in the same boat. So Markey says the Lynn machinists are the best in the USA, and it could be.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I have no way of agreeing or disagreeing with that.
But here's what I'm trying to get to. What does State Senator McGee say? He says the T bus service is the best in the country. That's 2 for 2. And then that's followed up and creatively by Senator State Rep Creighton, who says they're the best mechanics in America. Now, I might suggest there's a little hyperbole in there. And they're pandering.
Right.
See? Pandering to the crowd. But ultimately, what's going to happen, Paul?
Right.
Ultimately, it's going to be privatized, and they're not going to do a thing to stop it.
Right. They're just getting the support of the 200 or so that are freaking out about it.
And it's window dressing. Now let me go one step further. Here's what the picketers and the speakers. The speakers were those above, right? Here's what they say: tell Charlie Baker to stop waging war on the middle class.
So can I just interrupt you right there? So waging war on the middle class. I would think that the middle class in Massachusetts represents, let's say, 60% of the population. Let's call it 50%. That's 3.2 million people represent the middle class. How many people are affected by this decision?
Less than 200.
Okay, so it's less than 200 people versus 3.5 million that represent the middle class. How can that be a war on the middle class? It is, like you said, nothing but hyperbole.
Right. But the war on the middle class, that adds to the vitriol that everybody's complaining about vis-a-vis Charlottesville.
Right.
We'll get to that.
Right.
I mean, because a lot of this is fake news, agenda-driven, and the same as this. They all say the same: hyperbole, hyperbole, hyperbole. Now, here's a fueler, the guy that pumps the gas into the trucks. Here's what he said, quote unquote: 2 colleagues I work with just had kids, and Charlie Baker wants to take food off the table of these brand new babies. How the heck can you say something like that, Paul?
And for that matter, how could you ever believe that might be true? In any circumstance.
What is the purpose of saying that?
I just hope that the people are hearing it aren't foolish enough to believe it.
But is that news or is that editorializing?
It's absolutely editorializing. It gets back to that whole thing you were talking about with the excessive vitriol and the.
But Paul, let's go beneath the surface here. Let's be up front with the folks up there, because it's the city of Lynn, right? Why did the item put that on the front page with a picture of Tommy McGee next to Markey?
Because he's running for mayor.
Exactly.
Right.
And what is the race in the city of Lynn a partisan race?
Officially, no.
It's not supposed to be, is it? All right. Are they partisanizing the race? What's Charlie Baker?
Republican.
What is Judy Kennedy?
Republican.
What is Markey?
Democrat.
And all the rest of the folks that were there?
Not just Democrats, progressive, way to the left.
And let me ask you something. If Baker is considering privatizing the maintenance of the buses at the MBTA, where was Tommy McGee? he happens to be the chairman of that particular committee, joint committee.
Right.
So he had to be fully aware of it a long time ago.
Right.
So instead of taking a picture,
he's running for cover.
yeah.
He runs for cover on the issue and then stands up there and screams that it's a bad idea.
And who's enabling to run for cover?
The
Lynn item.
Right.
Okay, so decisions are being made by the item.
Right.
They've already picked the horse in this race, correct?
Right. Yeah, and the item, everything that the item does is with a preconceived strategy. It's not
Well-
about reporting news.
Well,
that's for sure.
I happen to like this kid who's running up in Ward 2, right? And there's someone else who's really got a lot of signs out there. They turn around the item, and they opening sentence in the item previewing the candidate in Ward 2 was not helpful.
Right.
Okay? Why? Why have they never mentioned the party designation of the ward councilors who are running? They don't, you know.
Right.
So they're
As
selective.
soon as they need it, they use it.
Opinion. Adding fuel to the fire. Pedro, you see this guy? Yeah, look at that one. This is an opinion, and here's the headline of it. By a Deline Glanton. Angry white men are fueling racial violence. Paul, are you an angry white man?
I can get angry at times.
Are you
But I'm
fueling
aware.
violence? Are you offended by this? As a white man, does this offend you?
The violence is coming from the left. So it can't
Where's it coming from?
From the left. It's not coming from me. Or from people who, that article refers to, no, it's not angry white men they're referring to. They're referring to anybody who doesn't agree with the progressive viewpoint.
First of all, you have to qualify who wrote the article. It's a columnist for the Chicago Tribune.
Okay.
It's a black woman, black female, right? So she's writing about white males. And so everything she's writing, and listen to this one. Folks, listen to this one word for word in the article. They hate the idea, meaning white men, angry white men, they hate the idea of sanctuary cities and agree with Trump that the law and order can best be achieved in local communities by getting tough, which seems to mean locking up black people and throwing away the key.
So,
Can you believe that?
so locking up black people and throwing away the key is
It's what angry white guys want to do.
That's
And
the whole
Trump, and
that's
Trump
the
people.
whole idea of the issuance of a decree that we will follow the rules, right? It's follow the law. All they're saying is let's follow the law. They're not saying we're going to make the laws more stringent, tougher on people of color. They're saying we're going to enforce the law. That's it.
Nothing wrong with that. Here's what she goes on to say. She says pretty much that Trump, all he did was get uneducated, underclassed white people that haven't got a clue as to what's
You mean
happening.
like you and I?
Yeah.
Okay.
But
All right,
meanwhile,
so
I
if
don't
you
know about
folks
you,
at home-
Paul.
I-
By the way, I'm not bragging, folks.
I'm pretty
but
proud of my
I have a few
education.
advanced degrees myself.
And I don't, but I'm proud of my education. I work hard at it.
Well, that's right.
I
But
work hard at understanding the issues, too.
my father went to the 3rd grade, Paul. He's a very bright man, so I'm not an intellectual snob. Apparently, she is. And if she's truthful and honest about it, it's the inner city underclass that supports the Democratic Party, the true uneducated, that can be led by, she says, 71% of white men voted for, angry white men voted for Trump.
Right.
Well, 95% of blacks voted for Obama.
Right.
Right?
Right.
I mean, let's talk some reality. It's the same thing down in Charlottesville. Oh, my God, those terrible alt-right people. I don't like them. Do you?
No, I
Are
can't
you a
stand
skinhead in any way?
No.
Can't stand them, right?
You know what?
But you know what, Paulie? You pointed out that they've had many of these events in the past.
They do this every year, and this is the first time I've actually heard about it. And the reason we heard about it is because so if they're calling these people the alt-right, these crazy supremacists,
Yeah,
and all
skinheads,
that,
white
right,
supremacists.
So the people that went down, the AFCA people, what do they call that?
They're called anti-fascist.
Anti-fascists, right?
Right.
But they're effectively the alt-left, aren't they?
Yes.
But they went down there with sticks and clubs with the intentions of making this front page news and a lot of
exactly, and nobody
noise.
wants to talk about that. They're complicit.
They're the cause, not
I
complicit.
understand that.
Complicit's not, it's too kind.
None of this would have happened if Terry McAuliffe, who's the governor of Virginia, and the mayor of that community did not say stand down to the police.
So you ever hear that expression, when you holler in the wilderness, nobody can hear you, right?
Yeah.
if this has been going on every single year and nobody's been paying attention to it, why would you want to draw any attention to them, give these skinheads any kind of forum at all? The idea should be to just continue to let them scream in the wilderness where nobody can hear them.
Paul,
That
I
would
want
be
to
the
ask you,
thing.
do you recall Ferguson?
Yeah.
Do you recall Baltimore?
Mm-hmm.
Both of those were really horrific.
Right.
And recently out in Berkeley,
Yeah. And the big thing about those 3 incidents, and this one down in Charlottesville as well, was that the politicians told the police to stand down in all 4 cases.
yes, that's true. But the 3 that I mentioned were Black Lives Matter type of situations, correct? No, not Berkeley, but Ferguson and Baltimore.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Did the
They
president...
were aggrieved, though, Joe.
Wait a minute. Did the president of the United States at that time come out strongly and talk down the Black Panthers and the Black Lives Matter groups? Huh?
No, he didn't.
Any critique, any criticism from the press, the media?
From the right. The right complained.
Was it heavy? Was it,
No,
was
the
it
right
consistent?
doesn't have a lot enough voice. The left has all the levers of power, so they're a lot.
Do you remember
noisier.
the intimidation that took place with the Black Panthers, with the baseball bats and stuff out in front of the polling places?
Yeah.
Okay. And Holder, who was the Attorney General at the time,
Refused to prosecute.
Okay. So, any screaming and yelling about that?
Just from the quiet
But
sounding of the
Trump,
left.
Trump
of the right.
rather, Trump turns around, and when it happened, was definitive about, didn't accept it one way or the other, and he said from all sides.
Right.
And all of a sudden, everybody gets bummed out of shape that he wasn't harsh enough, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, because he said, you know what? There's a lot of blame to be out here, and he wasn't specific enough because he didn't go after the white Aryan nation
And that's
solely.
That's all that the left is trying to do. They're trying to destroy him. So one way to do that is to attach him to this alt-right. And there really is no way to attach him.
And the item comes out in an editorial today right afterwards, on Tuesday,
Donald Trump
with
is better
this
for-
editorial.
Donald Trump is better for in my view, has been better for the African Americans because he's legitimately trying to do things to improve the inner cities.
That's right.
He's absolutely.
That's right.
And
But
how
in
can you
so doing, Paul, he wrestles the control factor from the power elite to which the Democratic Party has wedded itself to.
And it's a grievance group. They're all about, they need to be able to maintain these folks as victims. So by the very nature of their approach, they can never solve the problem for the African Americans. The Democrats can't, because they need them to be the victims so that they can continue to get them to support their causes.
Did you
It's
know this,
foolish.
You know this weekend, Paul, in Chicago, 9 deaths? You know this weekend there were X amount of shootings? Do you know that in Charlottesville there was 1 death? A crazy person drove a car in. Do you remember when somebody started shooting up everybody in Fort Hood?
Yep.
What do they call that? They call it terrorism?
Workplace violence.
Exactly. Workplace violence. They didn't call it domestic terrorism.
Even though he screamed Allahu Akbar.
Yeah.
Right.
So, folks, please, please think about these things. You know, nobody condones the type of hatred and violence that took place down in.
Absolutely.
So, I'm offended if somebody writes an editorial
It says it's because,
telling me
it's because of what we're...
that I'm a white guy, that all I want to do is get tough and throw black people in jail and throw away the key. That offends me.
Right.
That offends me on a lot of levels.
You know, it doesn't offend me, and the only reason it doesn't offend me is because I refuse to allow these pontificators to offend me. I just have to ignore them. You know what I mean?
To a lighter note, I'm going to go to Frankly Joe.
Okay.
Folks, here we go. Frankly Joe, let's get it up there. By law, legal immigrants must be medically screened to make sure they do not bring any contagious diseases into the United States. Illegal aliens are not. Malaria was eradicated in the U.S. in the 1940s. It has returned with vengeance. I always pronounce this wrong, so bear with me, folks. I think it's Dengue, was unknown in the United States. Not anymore. It's a fever. In the 40 years prior to 2002, a total of 900 cases of leprosy was recorded in the United States. Today, well over 10,000 have been reported. Most were illegal aliens. hepatitis A through C, tuberculosis, Chagas disease, previously unknown in the United States, are all on the rise. So, you tell me, if we screen legal aliens for contagious diseases, why then are we allowing unscreened and contagious illegal aliens to roam the country, infecting the citizenry? I ask you, Paul.
Well, you know, that's, if you hear a lot about, people saying that, well, there's 11 million undocumented in this country, so why should you penalize all 11 million because of a few that are problematic? Mm-hmm. And that's about because they're criminals, they're violent criminals and things like that. They're selling drugs or trafficking in humans and all that kind of stuff. And that's, a little bit different, but really not than somebody coming in and having a infectious disease that they bring with them.
How do we know the 11 million people don't have infectious disease? Shouldn't the 11 million people in the shadows come forward and say, please test me?
They should. In fact, there's a big program going on, and there's a pilot going right on in Lynn that GLIS is going to be a part of, where we're going to be, trying to help people to test people for latent tuberculosis. And, to your point, I don't think we would have this problem if we had this unfettered flow of illegal immigration for the past 8 years, and really long before that as well.
Both my parents and my siblings, as they went through Ellis Island, were not allowed to leave until they had a physical examination.
Until everything was
exactly right. And that's not just folks from my part of the world.
So can I just say something to be perfectly clear about this thing? And I think that because of the nonsense that you hear from the left regarding this whole issue, it's really important to say the only reason that we have 11 million illegal immigrants in this country is, well, it's not the only reason. The primary reason is not because of the individuals who came here and broke the law. The reason is because of the spineless politicians who allowed it to happen and didn't do anything to stop it. And because their contributors, whether it was on the Democrat side or on the Republican side, wanted them in here for whatever reasons they had, so they looked the other way, and we have this big messy problem now. So it isn't because Donald Trump is, racist. It's because the elected officials for the past 50 years have not done their job properly. That's why we have this problem.
Amen. Now to you, frankly, Paul.
Frankly, Paul.
You have to.
I get the.
You're dealing with mosquitoes for some reason. I mean, are you all excited about? Did you get that one? Yeah. And it kind of ties in with what we're trying to do here.
Okay. So all right. Here we go. So frankly, Paul.
Yeah. Let's get that.
We'll
frankly
put that
Paul
up on the screen. Yeah. So, have you noticed fewer mosquitoes this summer? I have. The United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs has a plan to combat dengue fever through the genetic manipulation of nature. The genetic manipulation of nature. Remember that point. The idea is to genetically modify mosquitoes to either kill or sterilize themselves. So whatever action they take will force the sterilization.
Right.
The long-term repercussions of doing so are widely unknown. Nevertheless, Bill Gates bought 500,000 shares of Monsanto stock, and Monsanto is in the vanguard of genetically modifying mosquitoes. Mm-hmm. Monsanto genetically modifies a lot of stuff, including the wheat that we eat on a regular basis. That's why that's part of why I went gluten-free, because of Monsanto. Anyway, although on the surface the idea seems noble, the potential for long-term harm is very real. At what point does the UN, Monsanto, and Bill Gates intend to stop manipulating nature? Perchance is human genetic modification the ultimate goal of the manipulators. And it may in fact be, but I want to point something out so that these folks, like the Bill Gates and the people that want to do this, are all on the same side. They're on the side of the climate change people who basically don't want to kill that last spotted owl because you can't upset the balance of nature. Mm-hmm. Doesn't genetically modifying mosquitoes and ultimately eliminating them from the planet have that same impact?
Well, obviously, because if they're going to be sterilized and kill each
other. So why would somebody who is diametrically opposed to anything that would affect the environment in a negative way be supportive of this?
Well, actually, ironically, some of the folks that you're talking about, the environmentalist type, are opposed to it.
But not Bill Gates. Bill Gates is he's a humanitarian of humanitarians.
Bill, look, here are three players. The United Nations, which means that we're giving up our sovereignty to the United Nations, correct?
Right.
Okay. Monsanto, which is a multinational, international.
It's a conglomerate that controls a lot of what goes on.
And Bill Gates, whose interest is not in the United States, is a globalist.
He's a guy who can make $1 billion in a good day.
All three. What are all three looking for? Control.
Right.
Ultimate control is manipulation of genetic patterns. It's the Frankenstein of the future, okay? The ultimate goal, and if people think about it, their ultimate goal will be to manipulate genetics in humans.
Right.
And make some drones and some soldiers or whatever, right?
It's like that ethical question that they had back in the Bush administration about should we allow. No, it wasn't the cloning, although that was part of it, but the stem cell research and all that kind of stuff because they were afraid that where it would lead to, which is down a path of genetically altering. You know, they got designer babies now they're talking about.
They're doing that now.
Right.
All right. So
and it's just a slippery slope.
This is something that ought to be thought about in serious terms. You know, and you know there are people. Don't forget, Margaret Sanger. Is that what they're saying?
Sanger.
Yeah. She wasn't altruistic. She wanted to get rid of people of color.
She was a racist, yeah.
Yeah, she was a racist, folks. The abolitionist queen.
Right.
Right.
She came up with the whole idea of abortion for blacks.
Yeah, exactly. And go back further. See, history is something no one studies. So therefore, they can make it up. That's the way they want it. Talk about mythology. You know, Frankenstein was written by a woman many, many years, I believe, pre-Civil War. I may be wrong. You can check me on that. For her to have that insight, Frankenstein essentially is saying...
It's a symbol, right?
Yeah. You want to screw around and play God, you want to screw around with nature, you're going to end up with a monster.
Yeah.
And that's precisely what Frankenstein's all about, right? It's forewarning.
Right.
And here we are, you know, a couple of 100 years later.
Yeah, romanticizing the whole monster concept in
it's a good thing. I don't think I want a boy or a girl. Let me see. Maybe I should have a trans. You know what I mean? Getting like that. Folks, by the way, one of the great minds of the 20th century, will go down, Steve Jobs, was adopted. And the fabulous story about his adoption is that the folks that were going to adopt him originally decided, I don't want him because I want a girl. Imagine that. And so a working class couple who desperately wanted a child begged, borrowed, and did everything they could to get a hold of him. Thank you, Paul Jobs, for doing it. Right?
Yeah. Wow. I never knew that. That's an interesting thing.
Mosquitoes, which are, get your little thing out here, Paul, because you're the mosquito man. Now, Monsanto wants to screw around with mosquitoes. A little history on mosquitoes. Mosquito Facts, kind of interesting. So if we thought, I'm not a fan of mosquitoes, by the way. In fact, Paul, mosquitoes are universally hated.
Yep.
Across the board, by all nations, all say. So if there's one thing we can all agree upon as humans, we don't like mosquitoes.
Right.
And that's the glue that holds us together.
Right. So what happens if the Democrats are making decisions about
mosquitoes?
No, about Republicans.
Not liking mosquitoes?
Because Democrats loathe Republicans, right? So conceivably they could go down that path at some point. It might take a few years. Hopefully not in our time. But that's what they'd do if they could, I bet.
Pedro, get those mosquitoes up there, and the Mosquito Facts, if we have it. I don't know. Paul just ran through that, and perchance are we going to, go from mosquitoes to humans and the genetic patterns. If we don't have it, I'll read it here. Mosquitoes are, Paulie, the deadliest animals on Earth.
Are they considered an animal? I mean, I'm just asking.
You're either a plant or an animal, Paul.
Is that right?
One or the other. Although nowadays there's a lot of trans going on.
Okay, so all right. So I'm sorry for sidetracking, but so what you're saying is more people die from the bite of a mosquito than any other.
Carriers of disease.
Right.
And that's what it is. Right. So the disease.
Smallpox and stuff. Yeah.
Everything.
Yeah.
Now here's the best part. Who does the biting? Take a look at that.
The woman.
Yeah, read it.
The female, right?
Yeah, only the female mosquito bites humans and animals. Meanwhile, the guys are out there sucking away at the nectar from the flowers, peaceful little creatures that we are, males. Unless they're angry white males, then you never.
Right.
What about this? Did you know that some mosquitoes don't bite at all? They don't bite humans. They don't want any part of us. Yeah. And at that, they are very slow flyers. And this is the key. They absolutely need water to breathe.
Right. That's why they always come. You find them around standing water in marshland and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
But I want to ask you honestly, have you noticed there's a decrease? I haven't seen too many mosquitoes around.
It's, you know, I gave up cigars, so I'm not out on my deck smoking cigars like I was or anything. So I'm not out there as much, but when I am out there, it's not as bad. You're right.
That's what I'm saying. I have not known. Folks, have you noticed mosquitoes or the absence of mosquitoes? And it's
Monsanto's been at this for quite a while.
That's my point, yeah. Now, the average life expectancy of a mosquito, an adult mosquito, is 6 months. To them, that's 105 years. You know what I mean? In our terms, or
right.
I'm exaggerating, but 6 months, which is pretty long. Now, here's fascinating. They say they're bred in a salt marsh.
Yep.
They can be found 100 miles away. And they're slow flyers, but they can travel pretty good. They can travel big distance. So if you think about that, up in Essex and all those salt marshes in Salisbury, that's within that 100-mile range, or down south. So they can travel pretty good. They can travel 100 miles from where they were hatched. The other thing fascinating about mosquitoes is they have an acute ability to detect carbon dioxide.
Which is what they're going for. That's how they know that there's a mammal around, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's why I say, oh, they that carbon dioxide, and they're going right for the jugular.
There's that angry white guy over there.
Yeah, so I'm giving him a snip in the neck. So from 75 feet away. Now here's the key. This is fascinating to me. Probably why I haven't noticed very many.
Oh, because they don't like garlic?
They hate garlic.
So you just eat that and
Unloaded with
it
garlic.
permeates your pores and
Exactly.
And
they avoid garlic. You know, these are bloodsuckers. They're like Count Dracula.
yeah.
So aren't they? Aren't they from the same family? They're
Yep.
bloodsuckers, aren't they?
Yes, indeed.
So they don't touch me because I'm loaded up with garlic. Thank you very much. Now we're going to read back to history, and I don't know that we have this up here, but you know, and this is fascinating because a lot of folks don't really, like I said, take a look at history to context things. So, do we have that history up there? I'll wait and see. I guess not. How about mark it down? Have we got that up there? All right, on mark it down, notice, Paul, look at that quote. Read that quote for me, will you?
Actually, we have misdefined hypocrisy. Hypocrisy is not the failure to practice what we preach, but the failure to believe it. Hypocrisy is propaganda, and that was by Peter Cleft.
Yeah, well, I can't read it either. But the bottom line, folks, is there you have the symbols of the Black Aryan Nation, the Black Panthers, and all. And the key is that nothing good comes from the blame game. So everybody's blaming this one and that one, you know. Oh, he didn't come out harshly enough and all that type of stuff. So mark it down.
Right.
Don't really, you know.
Right.
Get
You know,
that blame
I gotta
game.
say, you know, character and being principled and things like this are things that I think our parents always try to teach us as we're growing up. We learn it in school. You have to be a person of principle. You have to be honest, trustworthy. You have to have a high moral character, all these kinds of things, right? The stuff that's going on between the Democrats and the Republicans and the news media and this one and that one, they are basically ruining that whole mantra, that whole notion that for the younger population as they grow up, that you need to have high moral character, you need to be honest and trustworthy. They are basically saying anything is fair game. You can blame everybody, you can lie about it, you can do all this stuff. And this is the denigration of our society is primarily the result of those ruling class elites who are so busy trying to either retain or get back their power that they don't care what the impact that they have on society.
Last week you mentioned it, Paul. You call it the ABCs. Anarchy, barbarism, chaos. That's the ultimate thing. That's what they're looking for. Because at that point, they step in and control the ballgame. People will give up all their liberty and all of their freedoms for security.
Right.
That's the problem.
Right.
If we can, I have to get the riddle out there. Is the Riddler around town? Because, I need the folks to ponder the Riddler. Let's see if you can figure this one out, Paul. There is a certain family with both boy and girl children.
Okay.
Each of the boys has the same number of brothers as he has sisters. Each of the girls has twice as many brothers as she has sisters. How many boys and girls are there in the family? Now I'm going to read it again. Paul, do you want to save this or should I give them the answer? Do you want me to say it again, save it, have the people write into us, and whoever gets the answers first, we'll have a draw if there's more than one people to get it right. Huh?
Go ahead.
And then you and I will split a,
I want to try to figure it out, so repeat it, will you?
I will repeat it. There is a certain family with both girl and boy children. Each of the boys has the same number of brothers as he has sisters. Each of the girls has twice as many brothers as she has sisters. How many boys and how many girls are there in the family? Boom, 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 boom.
It's
I'll let you
1
think
and
about
2.
it. I'll let you think about it as we
One
go.
girl, 2 boys.
Huh?
1 girl, 2 boys.
1 girl, 2 boys?
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this. Isn't there a plural there? It says here, each of the girls, isn't that plural? Has twice as many brothers as she has sisters. So if you have one person and they have sisters, what does that mean minimum?
You're telling me I'm wrong?
Well, if you have sisters, that means you have 2. Okay?
Okay.
And if you have twice as many brothers, you'd have
4.
And if you have your other sister and you have 2 sisters, how many sisters? How many girls?
3.
3 girls.
4 boys.
Bingo. Folks, this guy's not only good looking and down to 173 pounds, he's actually fairly intelligent. Is that why you had a gliss or what? God.
You had to lead me through with my nose to the answer. Who are you kidding?
Yeah, but I knew the answer. Things to think about, folks. Let's get this guy up here, if we can. There we go. Things to think about, Paulie. Did you know that the Democratic Party's donkey symbol was adopted in 1828? There's going to be an anniversary coming up shortly, right? I hope I live long enough. When during the election of Andrew Jackson, his opponents called him a jackass. Huh? What about the second one,
So
Paulie?
what you're saying is that the moniker of the donkey for the Democrat Party was it was kind of like Yankee Doodle, right? It wasn't intended to be a nickname or
Oh no,
or
it was
positive.
pejorative. It was just
Pejorative, right,
stick it to you,
right.
stick it to you, Jackson. What's the next one?
Aside from being the first president of the United States, George Washington was a savvy businessman who owned one of the largest distilleries in 18th century America, and by 1799 alone, he was producing 11,000 gallons of whiskey.
How's that? He was the Donald Trump of his time.
He was. He was a very wealthy man.
No kidding. Successful, wealthy people usually make pretty good leaders.
Yeah.
If you think about it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, people on the take, are a little different.
Right.
And I love this one, Paul. And you heard of the Salem witch trials?
Yeah.
This is the great tomato trial. Read this one for us.
On September 25, 1820, Salem, New Jersey, held a trial against tomatoes of all creatures, right?
Yeah.
The general populace believed that tomatoes were poisonous. So a fellow by the name of Robert Johnson stepped in to prove them wrong. To do so, he bravely stood before a crowd at the courthouse and consumed a whole basket of the delectable fruit, noting that it is a fruit, not a vegetable, right?
Yeah.
Not dying after consumption, the trial was promptly dismissed.
You like that?
But in today's America, the CNN would still say that they're poisonous.
Oh, yeah.
They would not, facts would not matter.
Facts don't get in the way of agendas, Paul.
That's right.
That's the way they are. One of my favorite folks, and we're going to have a little larger than usual, longer than usual, if I can find the thing. One of the great witty guys of all time, otherwise known as Oscar Wilde. So we're going to do a bunch of his, and it's actually 2 pages long. So witty's a little longer than usual, kid.
Okay.
And we're going to start with here's what he said. He said, I think that God, in creating man, somewhat overestimated his ability.
So God was overestimated his own ability
Yeah.
to produce a good thing?
Apparently.
Okay, yeah.
Go ahead.
Especially for those angry white men, right?
You should like this one.
Always forgive your enemies. Nothing annoys them so much.
Yeah, you should think about that when you think about the Lynn item, by the way.
Well,
There are only two tragedies in life, Paul. One is not getting what you want, or what one wants, and the other is getting it.
yeah. Yeah, you know, that was that old expression, careful what you wish for?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Work is the curse of the drinking classes.
Think about that. Now, don't forget, this was the 19th century,
Work
Victorian.
is the curse of the drinking classes. All right.
You know what? They had a drinking on it because they had to work all the time. You know, you had to anesthetize themselves from the drudgery of work.
Right.
You get my point? It's kind of interesting. Anyone who lives within their means suffers from a lack of imagination. To be continued.
There is only one thing in life worse than being talked about, and that is not being talked about. That's a good point. Yeah.
It is a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is that? So somebody once told me that don't worry about if you have a negative story in the newspaper about you. Make sure they spell your name right.
Exactly.
Yep.
And he knew about this a long time ago.
Right.
And then Oscar said, morality is simply the attitude we adopt toward people whom we personally dislike.
I like that. That's, you know, and the moral fiber of the Democratic operatives that disguise themselves as pontificators in the news. That's what they're doing. Their morality is based solely on who they dislike.
Yeah, who they dislike.
Yep.
Good. You have to do. You're a gentleman.
A gentleman is one who never hurts anyone's feelings unintentionally.
That's an interesting thought.
Right. So that means it can happen time and time again, but it will never be intentional.
Well, a gentleman, you know, intentionally does it, not unintentionally. You know, if you accidentally kill somebody,
Right.
but if you intend to, you know, I guess.
Yep.
The old belief, and I like this one, the old believe everything, that's you and me.
Yep.
Well, actually, it's me, and then there's you. The middle-aged suspect everything. The young know everything.
That's right. And it's amazing how, with the passage of time, you go from knowing things to only suspecting things, and then going from suspecting things to only believing in
You're
things.
going to like this one.
When I was young, I thought that money was the most important thing in life. Now that I am old, I know that it is.
True friends, Paul, stab you in the front.
That's right.
Yeah. So, Oscar, you know, it's been a while, but you're always dear to my heart. Oscar wrote the picture of Dorian Gray. I don't know if you remember that at all. 10 minutes, Paul.
Dorian Gray, he was the
picture of Dorian
time. He's like trying to remember. So Dorian Gray was this. He had this concept of aging or something, right?
Gray. Yeah, well, he wrote it. And what happened is that he walked into the closet and there was a portrait that aged. It was of him, aging. He wasn't supposed to age. It's like one of those Faustian bargains you make with the devil, which, by the way, a lot of people make. Listen, we have to be honest about certain things. I was going back and forth with Steve Krause on Facebook. Nice guy, you know, from the item.
Yeah.
And he's all bummed up and up in arms about what happened in Charlottesville, as he should be.
Right.
But he took it to a place that I thought was irrational. And he finished one of the interchanges with me on the note that he was very pessimistic about the way we're going. And I said, no, I'm supposed to be the right winger, you know what I mean? I said, no, I'm optimistic. I tend to think the world is better today and will be better in the future. Putting aside what is now happening, things were infinitely worse. One of the things that we didn't get up under history, and I wanted to point it out because every dog has its day, so to speak.
Yep.
In 1891, in New Orleans, March 14th, notice I have the date in my head, 11 Sicilians, of which I am a member of that tribe, were hung. It's considered, it is, the greatest mass lynching in the history of the United States.
And why were they lynched?
For the same reason why the Japanese were taking, all the land was taken away from the Japanese on the West Coast during World War II, internment, economics, people like them, prejudice, all the things you want to talk about.
Like the
Everything they talk
Salem
about
witch
today.
trials was the same thing.
They didn't like the Dagos. They called them wops, Dagos, and all that type of stuff. And they were hardworking shrimpers, you know, owned the piers and the docks. And it becomes envy, as you well know.
Yeah.
Right? Upward mobile, hardworking people. Different, you know, the differences. And then when my dad was a young man toiling in Boston, Sacco and Vanzetti were executed, as you well know. And thankful to Frankfurter, Felix Frankfurter, who became a Supreme Court Justice, Roosevelt appointed him. He fought very diligently that they were innocent. He lost the battle, but he tried. And very thoughtful people did the same. So you have to look. Now, there were riots, folks, that makes Charlottesville look like a day on the beach, because the riots that took place on the Sacco and Vanzetti when they were executed were international. Riots all over the world.
Really?
Yeah.
And when was this?
I think they were. I think they went down in 1927, 1928, where they were executed.
What did they
were
do?
in jail
What
for
were they accused
They
of
were
doing?
accused. They were anarchists. They never. As a matter of fact, let me run through my folks, if you bear my indulgence. I have a little thing that Vanzetti once said at the time, which was kind of instructive. They were, of course, I'll never find it when I want it. They were anarchists, and at that time there was the Red Scare in our country. Well, listen to this one, the Red Scare, you know, well, that's the blacklist in Hollywood and all that type of stuff, supposedly. And they were looked at as being foreign subversives and stuff to that nature. And a robbery took place, and they were blamed for killing the night guard or whatever.
Right.
So, anyway, here's what Vanzetti said in his defense at the trial. You know, they were trying to get move it up to retrying, you know, and appeals. And I quote, "I would not wish to a dog or to a snake, to the most low and misfortunate creature of the earth, I would not wish to any of them what I have had to suffer for the things that I am not guilty of. But my conviction is that I have suffered for these things that I am guilty of. I'm suffering because I'm a radical, and indeed I am a radical. I suffer because I'm an Italian, and indeed I am an Italian. If you could execute me 2 times, and if I could be reborn 2 other times, I would live again and do what I have done already." So, he understood. Everybody, the Irish, Crowley is not a...
Do not apply, yeah.
Yeah, that's a nice Irish name. Do not apply.
Yeah.
You know, the Irish, they didn't have a great time when they first got here. And by the way, the Germans were treated quite badly in certain places too. So, you know, I'm not excusing the problems that black Americans had. That's unacceptable.
real,
Yeah. No one's excusing that. I had no part of it. You know, my folks didn't get here until 1912, long after. But think about this. Think about the Jim Crow laws. Who were the folks to push that? They happened to be Democrats, folks. They were the Dixiecrats. Remember that. Remember that Al Gore's father, senator from Tennessee, was a segregationist. So wasn't Fulbright. You know, that was the hero of...
Right.
of
Like you said, it was all about the way the wind was blowing, right?
Who were the guys who fought for civil rights against the Jim Crow laws? Try Romney's father, Judge Romney.
Dwight D. Eisenhower.
Dwight D. Eisenhower. Well, you know, another Republican.
And who
the party
stopped it?
was founded, the Republican Party was founded for the emancipation of the slaves. So something went amiss somewhere along the line. Ladies, if you think the Democratic Party is in favor of women and women's rights, you're wrong. It's the Republican Party that fought for suffrage, women's suffrage, the right to vote. And on it goes. Progressive party throughout history. The word conservative means to preserve. Teddy Roosevelt, conservationist, right? Who are the environmentalists, Paul? Are they the liberals or are they conservatives? Conserve means to preserve, doesn't it?
Yep.
But folks, these terms get all mixed up because you got a bunch of crazies at the college universities, or you have folks like this woman who wrote the editorial that's in the item. And read it. Read it. Read it for yourself. And if you're not upset about it, you should write about it. You know, what is the item doing? Should you not be selective? Well, I not get into it because I don't want to get to First Amendment. If you're going to call things hate speech, is this kind of hateful? The idea of sanctuary cities and agree with Trump that the law and order can best be achieved in local communities by getting tough, which seems to mean locking up black people and throwing away the key. Is that hateful speech?
It is. It's a off the charts exaggeration of.
It's not even close to being true.
Right.
So this is what I'm talking about. Let's sit down and talk as reasonable human beings, if there are any more.
Yep. There are.
I know there are. That's
But
why I told you.
None of them are in power currently. So.
I told you the world is better. My children, my grandchildren have carried the ball further. They don't have the same hang-ups, the negativity that my generation and the previous generation for me had. We're moving forward, folks, in a positive direction, and I wish people would just talk about it and celebrate it. We have mistakes, you know. Paul, you made a few.
Still making them.
No, you don't. Not intentionally. They're by accident.
Well, I don't make as many anymore.
You're wise. It's called wisdom, maturity.
Yeah.
Hey, you're down there helping all those nice folks down there at Gliss, the old seniors like me.
Yeah.
And you taught me how to prevent myself from falling. Heel toe, heel toe.
Heel to toe, yeah.
That's a great story. Folks, listen to this story because it's instructive. Paul, tell them that story.
What story is
about the guy that kept falling down and coming in with you bruised?
Yeah, so turns out he was walking down to the senior center from his apartment. He lived over on Church Street, and he would fall and take some pretty decent headers where he was scraping his face, and he community had scars, not scars, but scabs all over his face. It was really pitiful, you know. And one time he was climbing over a snowbank, and he got stuck in the snowbank. He couldn't get his leg out, and the fire department had to get him out. So we actually sat down with him. We had a Move Safe counselor talk with him, and this Move Safe counselor, you know, kind of went over what he does and how he does things, and kind of went through some exercises and basically taught him things like heel to toe, and you know, and how to stand up without using your hands, and recognizing the importance of balance and so forth, and the value of having a cane. And so he ended up using a cane. Didn't want to at first, but now he's kind of really likes having it. 2 years went by, never fell. I mean,
that's a wrap, by the way.
Yeah.
Those are the types of things that happen at Gliss. And if you trace still, oh, wait a second, I just got a news flash. We got a little more time here, so finish that story. Or is it a wrap? Oh, it's a wrap. Paul, always a pleasure. We'll be checking on whether we'll be here next week. I'm not sure. But remember, September, we go live.
Going live in September.
That's it.
Looking forward to it.
Have a great week.